We're getting into it, Dave. 2018 best TV shows of the year. Before we jump in, because we really kind of break it down between three mediums. We do music, we do TV, we do movies. It's like our bread and butter right there.
Mm.
Sometimes we'll throw in
Holy
some.
Trinity.
Yeah. And if you had to throw a fourth one in, just like overall trends that are going on in
Yeah.
pop culture. But where does TV rank in those three for you?
That's a good question. I mean, I inherently watch less TV than I do watch movies or listen to albums. So I guess in that sense, it's third. But that's not like, it's not that I have any issues with TV. I love TV, especially TV now, where there's more good TV than I have time to watch it, you know?
Mhm.
I think it's just easier to bang out music, and I've really taken to going to the movies as much as fucking possible now. So
Mhm.
I see a lot of movies, but yeah, I think TV is I think it was a good year for TV. Maybe not the greatest year. Um, Nothing really captured the zeitgeist, but that this is also a different time where that's a lot harder to do in terms of delivery methods. And we'll talk more about television trends later in the month. But yeah, I even if it's quote my third place pillar, I still had a great time with television this year. I watched a lot of it. Probably the most TV I've ever watched, to be honest, in terms of just watched different seasons I hadn't seen before. So I mean, what about you? How are you feeling with TV these days?
Yeah, TV I think used to be my number one, and I feel like it's probably fallen back to two or maybe three. I think that speaks more to the year we had in movies and music. I mean, movies just making my top 10 list right now. There's gonna be so many that I leave off that are gonna be tough to leave off, and I didn't even see nearly as many movies as you have. And by the time we record, I doubt I'll have seen some of the movies that are on a lot of people's top 10 lists just by fact it won't be out by me. So, and music, I mean, we'll talk about it next week, but pretty much every major artist dropped an album this past year that you can think of, other than, like Vampire Weekend, the Alabama Shakes, like those notable exceptions, maybe a couple of pop people like Bieber didn't drop one, but
Hmm.
overall, I mean, hell of a year for music, especially in rap. I mean, it's unbelievable the names that dropped, and the albums that stood out are like mostly not well established people, but up and comers. So it's just unbelievable. So I think TV at this point is probably third for me, but still, I mean, we're going to be talking, at least I'll be talking about Vince Gilligan to spoil a little bit.
Hmm.
We're going to be talking about some new people, but overall, just a lot of the people who are making these. I mean, um, Matthew Weiner's not even going to be on there, and
Nope.
he came back to TV this year, and that speaks to just like the strength of all these mediums right now. Have a lot of great curators. So why don't we start off with shows that didn't make our list that we um, had a hard time leaving off? Yeah, I know you had a couple.
Yeah, I feel like I had like a big 13 this year. So and these are shows that I didn't have any issues with. I just obviously, that's three shows I just have to cut off. One of those shows came out on Netflix in the early summer, and that's Glow, the second season on Netflix. Is that on your list?
Didn't make mine.
Didn't make yours. Yeah, it's and I think Glow is a show that has relatively few flaws in it. I think it actually leveled up in its second season, and I think had more ambitious storytelling and more moments for its supporting cast. And obviously, Allison Brie, Betty Gilpin are great lead actors for it, and Mark Maron, of course, is really awesome too. But just didn't quite make the cut. But it's a show that I really like, and honestly, I don't watch a ton of comedy, so for a comedy to stand out to me, I think actually kind of speaks to the overall quality and uniqueness of it. And I think Glow,
Mhm.
2 seasons in, I'm a big fan of.
Definitely. Yeah, Glow didn't make my list. Um, it's a great show. Betty Gilpin and Allison Brie are phenomenal in it. Mark Maron also gives a great performance, and this season did a really good job of starting to flesh out those other characters as well. So I only see that show getting better as it moves forward. What else didn't make your list?
Uh, is the Deuce on your list?
The Deuce was my number 11.
The Deuce is
it,
my number 12, and
ah,
I think I had it like 8 or so last year for its first season. Just didn't quite make the cut this year. But again, it's a show that I don't have any issues with. I really enjoy it. Obviously, we talked a fair amount a bit about it recently, but you know, again, a David Simon show with fucking Pelicanos writing and Franco and this great talented cast and this incredibly great world building that we come to expect from David Simon. And it's, I think it's a pleasure to watch and has quite the ensemble, one of the most impressive ensembles you have in terms of servicing all these different storylines.
Mhm.
And Maggie Gyllenhaal, I think, really shined this season, but just didn't quite make the cut this year. And I think that just kind of speaks to the other shows I had on the list. Not really anything for Fall of the Deuce.
Yeah, I think our biggest criticism when we spoke about the season as a whole of the Due season two was there's almost like too much good stuff going on to give enough time to any single one, which is
Right.
a really a great criticism of a show if you just want to see more of everything. So, yeah, definitely check out the Deuce. It was a tough one to leave off. What was your number 11?
My number 11 is Maniac on Netflix. Is that on your list?
I didn't make it.
Yeah, Maniac. That's a show. We talk a lot about auteurs, and we'll talk about some shortly. But I mean, Cary Fukunaga just directed the shit out of it, and this is a show that's a miniseries. Emma Stone and Jonah Hill, obviously the selling points, all these big name talent, and Patrick Somerville, big time showrunner. But it's just a show that just shot at shot the whole time and does all these cool like one off destinations because it's all mental projections and whatnot. So I was really impressed with the show. I really liked it, and it's a show that the plot is almost secondary to just the visuals and like the in the moment storytelling. Not the overall narrative or anything. But I really like Maniac, and it's a miniseries, so it's done, it's over. But I know some like wacky shit like that. That's also like really well done and looks amazing. Like I have a lot of time for.
Yeah, I think with how good TV is now, and you really have to choose like how you're going to spend your time watching television because it's out of all three of those that we talked about, it's the one that needs the most needs it just takes up the most time to no matter what. You want to watch something that's like visually pleasing and also that challenges you a little bit. And that's actually one of the shows I left off I wanted to mention, which is Legion by Noah Hawley. Season two was I thought a very good season. Didn't quite have the momentum of season one. And I think it got a little superfluous at times and a little bit almost like too out there. Needed to rein itself back in. But I mean that's a show kind of similar to Maniac that I got a lot of time for. Just that final battle between Farouk and David is like
for sure.
I still think about that scene a lot. So some great stuff in all of those. One other show I left off my list, but I have a feeling you'll have on yours. Sharp Objects on HBO.
Not on my list actually.
Well, shout out to that. There were a lot of great new shows this year, and that was a limited series. Not going to be coming back for another season, but you got Gillian Flynn, you got Amy Adams. It was really well done. Had a nice twist at the end, but I think for me, it just wasn't able to crack my top 10 just because there was a lot of like moments where I found myself kind of down on it. Just it wasn't a very fun show to be in at times, and I'm not really here for that.
Yeah, Sharp Objects, I think I said this at the time, but it's a show that I respect more than I actually was entertained by most of the time, And Amy Adams' performance is great. It's Chris Messina was really good too, and has actually a distinct visual style, which I think was helpful to the mood it was setting, but it often wasn't the most inviting watch. But I still respect it because it's still well done.
So why don't we jump into our top 10 lists? You want to go first?
Yeah, my number 10 is one of two shows on this list that I literally just finished, and that's The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel season 2.
Yeah.
I'm sure that's on your list somewhere.
Yeah, I have that number 6.
Cool. Yeah, Maisel. I know I didn't watch it in time for my list last year. I don't know. Did you watch it? It came out in December last year as well. I don't think. Did you watch it in time, or did you get to it late also?
I think I got to it late as well.
Yeah, so because I remember we did post a review, but it was in the new year this year. But banged out this whole season, this 10-episode season order over the course of a weekend. And honestly, I kind of like to, I wish I could just do it all over again because the show is so darn pleasurable like the whole time. It's incredibly bingeable. And Amy Sherman Palladino fresh off some Emmy wins. The show won
Yep.
hella Emmys, 4 out of 5 Emmys a few months ago, and this new
Mhm.
season already got 3 Golden Globe nominations. And I mean, that's because the dialogue in Palladino fashion is super witty and sharp and rapid
Quick.
fire, and it's just so darn enjoyable. And that's
Mhm.
on top of the fact that Amazon put some coin into this, so it looks amazing. It's got great locations, whether you're in Paris or the Catskills or New York, and
Yep.
of course the performances are perfect. Rachel Brosnahan and Alex
Mhm.
Borstein, of course, but Tony Shalhoub is just fucking on one this whole season. He's
Yep.
hilarious, and I actually saw it. Zachary Levi had great chemistry with Brosnahan and was a
Mhm.
welcome addition to the cast. So yeah, I really like this season. I saw some comments that the show maybe was less interested in the forward momentum of Midge's career. And maybe that was like that detour was perhaps not for the best interest of the show. But I thought overall, like, it's just so enjoyable, such a good time, no matter what we're doing on that show. That I don't really mind if we're slowing down the story, considering we know we're going to get several more seasons. So I was a big fan. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have it number 6 on my list. There are moments in the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel when I think I forget I'm watching a TV show. I just get like so sucked into it. Like when Midge is doing the TV show and she starts like taking the calls and kind of like going around the set, and they start like everybody like comes rushing back to the stage to like watch her.
Right.
I felt sucked in the same way, just because Rachel Brosnahan's performance is so magnetic. And the funniest, like, I guess, like, maybe not the funniest, but the most impressive thing about this season is I actually think Alex Borstein's performance is even better. I found myself way more interested in Susie's storylines and her escapades, especially like when she gets abducted or when she's taking on I forgot the other female comedian, like the
Jane Lynch's character.
yeah, Jane
Yeah.
Lynch's character. Um, I just love seeing the way that Susie kind of navigated all that. My one critique of the show is I do feel like the pacing of it is a little bit up and down, and some of the character arcs, like a lot of shows where they try to mirror the real world or progress, and characters fall back into old patterns. I felt very frustrated by especially Rose's story arc this season, where she starts off and is really this badass at the beginning of the season and falls quickly back into the old patterns by the end.
Yeah, yeah, I think you're right there. The show's indulgent at times,
Yeah.
especially with the screen time it gives to the whole ensemble. And yeah, I think the stuff with Rose was kind of disappointing just because she kind of just falls back into yeah, we're gonna kind of comment on gender roles of the 50s, but not really go anywhere with it. So Rose is just gonna kind of be there and play off of Abe. And
Mm-hmm.
it's fine. It's great to watch. They're doing good stuff with that, but you just kind of let on that you perhaps were gonna take a little further, and then you just backed off. I agree with
Right.
that. Yeah, I think
Also,
they give
oh, go ahead.
Susie the best lines. Like obviously, like the comedy bits are well written, but yeah, I think Alex Borstein definitely has like the best singers and stuff just throughout.
Definitely. Just one other critique, and this is a personal thing. I don't really give a shit about Joel and Midge at all. So
Yes,
like,
I was gonna say this as well.
yeah, like their romance, especially like in the beginning, like when she's in France and she's telling the story and it's a drama and everybody's crying. I was like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't give a shit about Joel. Like, and
Joel
Midge
sucks.
shouldn't
Let's just
either.
say
Yeah,
it.
Joel does suck, and I actually he sucks less this season than he did in past. But you know what really made me out on Joel? That guy doesn't know how to fucking swing a baseball bat. That scene where him and his friend are like hitting balls into the field. I was watching with Julianne. She was like, "That guy doesn't know how to swing." I was like, "Yeah,
Yeah, was that CGI? Because they were hitting the balls far.
yeah, really far."
Yeah, it's
I have no
funny.
idea.
Yeah, no, I mean that's the thing though. Like that's a scene that can stand out for a bad reason, right? But there's so many moments like that. I think actually the best stuff for me with Joel, and again, some people probably didn't like this because it slowed down and took time away from Midge and Susie, but his stuff with his dad, Moish,
Yeah,
and
great.
Kevin Pollak is fantastic doing
Mm-hmm.
Jewish humor and stuff, right? So I thought
Yep.
their whole dynamic was awesome. And but yeah, I mean, I did not expect to spend like 3 episodes at the Catskills Steiner Resort,
Yeah,
but we
definitely
did.
not. But I think there was a lot of great stuff in there, but
Right.
definitely the pacing of the show is something that was up and down for me. But Marvelous Miss Maisel, if you haven't watched it and you have Amazon Prime, which pretty much everybody does, you need to check it out. I can't recommend it enough. Number 10 on my list was The Good Place, which I think came in at like number 4 on my list last year. This is the third season of this NBC Michael Schur property, and it's just really, really fun to watch. This has probably been the worst season. Season 2 actually I think was airing the second half of it when we were finishing up we started the year. So really, I guess this is the second half of season 2, which is phenomenal, and then the first half of season 3, which seemed to lose its footing a bit. They were going back and forth between the bad place and back on Earth, but now they've brought it back into the absurd and going into I think they're headed to the good place finally, the actual good place. So there's a lot of really cool stuff. Darcy Corden in the last episode that aired was really on one, and she had to impersonate every single actor in the show, except for Ted Danson, and she fucking nailed it. It was unbelievable. So shout out Darcy Corden. She was also in it's actually DRC Corden. She's also in Barry as like one of like the bit people in the
class.
Yeah, the class. So she's having a great year. Barry, I think, will be on both of our lists later on. But The Good Place, if you want to find a 30-minute comedy that is it's a great sitcom, definitely can't recommend that enough as well.
Your number one source of Blake Bortles humor on television.
Yes, Blake Bortles humor. Well, actually, it's funny. Once they said Blake Bortles is good, he started being bad again. The whole bit is fucking phenomenal. I don't know how they do it. What was your number 9? Sorry.
Yeah, my number 9 is the other show that I literally just finished, and that's partially because literally finished airing last night, and that's My Brilliant Friend on HBO. This is a co-production between HBO and RAT and TMI Vision from Italy. It's an Italian show, all in Italian with English subtitles, cast with all these unknown actors from the Naples, Italy region. And it's an 8-episode miniseries adaptation of the first book in the Neapolitan series by Elena Ferrale, I think is how you say it. And it's a wide bestseller, really famous quartet of novels, and they already greenlit a new miniseries for season 2. But this is something that actually kind of surprised me. I was not, I was saying, am I going to give this a shot? And I saw some love for it, and I saw Paolo Sorrentino executive produced it, and we were a big fan of his work on The Young Pope last year. So I was like, I'll give it a shot. And I mean, obviously, it's requires a lot of your attention, being that it's all in subtitles. You literally cannot look away or anything like that. But what the show, what the show is set in a post-war suburb of Naples, Italy, in like the 1950s, and it's about the relationship of these two girls, Lila and Lenu, and how they grow up. And starts out when they're literally like 8-year-olds, and then they age up with new actors, so that they're like in their early teens. And it's just a really warm show with great comments on gender roles at the time and class, socioeconomic stuff. And it's on the show really beautiful, and I really enjoyed it. It's definitely, again, a demanding watch because of the language, but I thought where it went, and honestly, the strength of these actors, these kids were actually really good despite being just unknowns. I mean, I think they went through like 9,000 kids at the auditions to finally cast these kids, and they were really good. So My Brilliant Friend, that's my number 9. I did not expect the show to be on there, let's put it that way, but I was very impressed with the show. 8 episodes.
Definitely a show I want to check out. Just didn't have time. Wasn't able to get to it in time. My number 9, I assume this is on your list because you didn't give it a shout out, so it must be. Better Call Saul, season 4 just aired. Where's it fall on your list?
It's number 5 for me.
Ooh, very, very strong. I mean, it could have been up there. I think this speaks to, again, how strong of a year it was. Better Call Saul for me. I mean, this season 4 was almost like had two very different storylines. There was the procedural lawyer drama with Bob Odenkirk and Rhea Seehorn, and then there was Jonathan Banks trying to get this lab built. and kind of how all the issues that came along with that and the Germans. Um, the most impressive thing to me about this show is um, Vince Gilligan. I think in the first couple seasons we talked about in our breakout how it moved almost too slow, like to a point where it was hard for people to really stay engaged with it, and it all works so perfectly to build such a really like a breathtaking world, because when you step into this show, you are like lost in Bob Odenkirk as Saul. You're lost in Jonathan Banks as Mike, trying to figure things out with Gus. But mostly, and I think the standout of all this is Kim Rhea Seehorn,
Mm.
who is the heart of the show, and she's the person that is the the audience's I'm losing the word, but she
Avatar.
basically, yes, Avatar. Thank you. Um, and the look on her face at the end of the season as Saul, you think Jimmy's gonna go back to being good, and they're gonna get together, and she sees him just slip into Saul for good.
Bunch of
Is
suckers.
Yeah, it's perfect to basically sum up the season and what we are seeing. So Vince Gilligan, masterclass in TV making. I'm really excited to see how this show wraps up in the next two seasons. You had it at number 5. Why at number 5?
Yeah, I just think honestly, Gilligan and Gould, they're just fucking pros, man. It's a
Yeah.
masterclass in TV making and just sheer excellence in writing. Um, these scripts are fantastic, and these seasons are so well thought out. And when you think back on how any of these seasons progress, the pacing is really impressive. And then you factor in the world building, the fact that this is also surfacing the Breaking Bad universe as a prequel, and it's like everything it does, it's just so impressive. And like you said, the performances are great, but like it's a show that will spend like minutes on end with minute things, but because of the way it builds and delivers things, it's so effective. Like I keep thinking about the slow build up to Mike putting gum in that parking lot
Yeah.
card slot to lose the tail, right? And
Mhm.
that whole buildup is like 2.5 minutes, all for him to do this one thing and get away. But and like there was the sight gag with the gun in the glove compartment early in the scene, right? Like
Mhm.
it's moments like that where you just realize how great and talented these guys are.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love Saul.
Yeah, that scene, and also when Mike has to kill the German out in the field, and just
Right.
like the way that they shot that from a distance, and you can just barely see their outlines. I thought was so beautifully done. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, Vince Gilligan, this and Breaking Bad, crazy that this he's on a fucking heater like the
Hmm.
last what decade, 12 years now.
Something like that. Yeah. When was Brad? Oh wait, I think it started.
Yeah, it must
Yeah.
have been so decade. Um, number 8 for me. Oh wait, did you do your number 8 yet?
No, I did not. I'm sure this is on your list too. The Little Drummer Girl.
Yeah, I had that at number 5 for me.
Awesome. Yeah, again, another show we just recently talked about, but uh, a show that we thankfully got here in the U.S. on AMC very soon after it was airing, or right as it was airing in the UK. And yeah, it's a show that's like it's like the best kind of vibe. It's like a period show, but it's so uh, like Park Chan Wook's camera work is so strong and also unique. Like it really stands out where we're framing all these kinds of scenes, whether these are like realistic, actually in the moment events we're seeing with Florence Pugh and Skarsgård and Shannon and all them, or it's like more mental projections. And while the story, the plot isn't as easy to follow at times, if the show is not holding your hand with anything, you just kind of
Mhm.
get on board with this show. And because it's only 6 episodes, you just kind of ride with it. And I think it's in terms of like a show that's indulgent with spycraft and obviously indebted to its source material from John Le Carre. I think it's really special and really stood out in terms of we watch a lot of miniseries. We watch a lot of shows that have like spying or like um, secret spy and stuff like that. And it was more than that. It wasn't as procedural as I thought. It wasn't as uh, point A to B as I thought. It was much more ethereal, and
Mhm.
that's kind of what stood out to me the most. apart from the great cast and the great locations. It's the vibe that really stuck with me.
Yeah, I think what stands out to me most is the show is really a mirror image in a lot of ways. You have Sarsgaard and Shannon on one side, and then you have the two the two people in the Palestinian army, Revolutionary Army, or whatever it's called, on the other
Mm-hmm.
side, and in the middle is Florence Pugh, and these guys are like 6 feet tall, handsome guys. I mean, Skarsgård is like the epitome of like a
Mm-hmm.
handsome like actor, and the whole season rests on her teetering back and forth on this ledge, and the way that she's able to give a performance where I think, unless you've read the novel, a lot of people were not sure which side she was going to come out in
Right.
that final episode is just amazing, and really such a breakout for her. Yeah, and I think also for, you mentioned it before, but Park Chan Wook is, you know, announcing his presence with authority here. Really stylish, beautiful scenes. We talked about it in our breakout, but like sitting on the Acropolis, the scenes of the the hillsides, and just overall a beautifully shot season. So definitely, if you have 6 hours, during your winter break, highly recommend this, and make yourself familiar with Florence Pugh, because she's not going anywhere. Number 8 for me was a show we talked about recently as well, Homecoming by Sam Esmail on Amazon. 30-minute drama. 10 episodes, 30-minute drama. I could not have been happier with a 30-minute drama. Sitting
Yeah,
through these hour
honestly.
long is quite the grind sometimes. And this was so well done by Ashmael. Not only, he was using multiple timelines to tell the story and to fill in gaps, and I think the payoff and how he was going back and forth with the like the screen that was kind of minimized down to then have it
Mm-hmm.
open up was wonderful overall. But he also just, I mean, you take Julia Roberts and you let her kind of run with this story and just give such a great, I feel like, measured performance in a lot of ways. And I don't see how anyone could really watch this and think that this TV show isn't worthy of being in a top 10 list.
Yeah, Ismail directed all 10 of these episodes, and
Mm-hmm.
like you said, the camera techniques really stand out. Whether that's the conventional full shots, where the visual palette really stands out, similar to his
Yeah.
techniques with Mr. Robot. But then, like you said, when he's conveying memory and flashbacks in a certain way with the 4:3 aspect ratio in regards to Julia Roberts, Heidi,
Mm-hmm.
it's really dynamite. And again, like I spoke about Maniac before, that has unique ideas going on, but Ismail is someone who always brings this with anything he makes. Now this is the second show we've seen him do this, and it just makes the show like really eye catching. Apart from the fact that it also moves at a cool pace. Again, it's only 5 hours long, but it moves pretty briskly, and it's not like just a mystery box show. It's more of a traditional like thriller indebted to like the 80s and stuff, right? I think it's really well done in that regard. And like you said, Julia Roberts playing her first TV role, but she's very much playing off type. She's usually just a effortlessly charismatic performer, but she's playing a character that's not that.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a really exciting show, and of course, if you go stick it through to the end, where the show leaves off with Hong Chow and Canafale and whatnot, it's very definitely excited for season 2. But season 1 itself, I thought was fucking awesome. I really liked it. That's number
Yeah.
7 for me.
And I have no doubt we're going to be talking about Sam Esmail next year for Mr. Robot season 4, which should be premiering, I think, sometime early next year. So definitely, Homecoming is worth the watch. And like we said, it's 30 minutes, so you can get through it pretty quick. Number 7 for me. I don't know if this is going to be on your list. The End of the Fucking World on Netflix.
It is not on my list. I had that a little further down outside my top 13, but which one of the first shows we talked about of the year. But I quite enjoyed it.
It was directed by Jonathan Entwistle and Lucy. I'm not going to say this right. Cherniak. But really, this show rests on the performances of the two leads, Alex Lothar and Jessica Barton, and it's a very dark, witty show about these two kids who are have some traumatic things happen to them in their lives prior to join together and then after they join together, and just kind of how they're dealing with it. And they both give excellent performances. Obviously Jessica Barden gets a little bit more room in the kitchen to cook with than Alex Lothar's James, who's a little bit more within himself. But I think the story is really magnetic, and you just want to keep watching. And I think it makes it the perfect Netflix show, but also the perfect show for, I think, teenagers and young people at this time, in a world that is, very difficult in a lot of ways on a daily basis. And these two people just trying to figure it out. So definitely recommend it. And it's quick. It's also a 30-minute episode. So it's worth the watch. What was your number 6, Dave?
My number 6 was Bodyguard on Netflix.
Fuck. I forgot Bodyguard. Damn it. Oh, man. I had a feeling I was forgetting one of them. If I had to go back and do it, Bodyguard probably would have gone number 10 for me. So,
which would have bounced what out for you?
The Good Place.
Okay. Yeah. No, and it's a great year. It's tough to narrow it down. Yeah, no, Bodyguard. This is another show I talked about in this fall. It's literally the most popular show in England, in the UK, since Downton Abbey. Massive numbers over there. And we got it pretty soon afterwards here on Netflix. Again, another quick turnover to the States. But this was a show that really maintained its tension throughout the whole run. I think it was 6 episodes, so it's pretty short. Yep. And did not really hold your hand with that tension. I think once the big event happens, early on in terms of character dynamics changing, the plot might be a little more frenetic, but I still think overall it's really enjoyable. And a lot of that's because Richard Madden, I think, gives a great performance. Again, we knew he was talented from portraying Robb Stark, but he gets a lot more to do in this. And I think he's, especially in the early going, he's very it's a very subdued performance. He's internalizing a lot. You're not really sure where he stands with a lot of the events. But no, I thought it was a really thrilling show. And I think a lot of these shows that we have on our list are pretty short runtimes, right? I think, and with something we've always talked about, we're like, trim the fat, cut it down. But I think a show like Bodyguard, which was a little longer than Collateral, another similar UK-based show, but I think Bodyguard was really kind of like the perfect size, just because in terms of being a political thriller with like spycraft and stuff, So yeah. I really liked it. I thought it was really engaging the whole time, and I would recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, a super crowd pleasing show. It had those really like tense action type moments, but then also the plot moved in all the directions you kind of wanted it to for the most part. So there's not too much I can say bad about Bodyguard, and only I wish I had remembered it to put it on the list.
Yeah.
Number 6 for me was Maisel. We already talked about it. Number 5 for me was Little Drummer Girl. What was your number 5?
Saul.
Okay, let's jump to number 4. What'd you have?
Barry.
Well, actually, yeah, before you start, I feel like there is a definitive top 4 for this year. If nothing else, I feel like there's 4 shows that really rose above the rest. And I think we're going to have the same 4, just in different orders.
Yeah, I had these 4 blocked off here for some time.
Yeah,
I agree. And my number 4 was Barry.
Yeah, Barry came in number 3 for me. So why'd you have Barry at 4?
Yeah, Barry, early in the year, right? And it really impressed us. I mean, obviously we were interested from the start, Bill Hader doing something that's not outwardly comedic, and Henry Winkler returning to television after, quite some time out of the sun. It was intriguing to everyone, right? And I believe, and Barry Hader also was involved with the production of this and directing and stuff. It was very much a Hader production. And then once you watch the show and you realize like it's operating at a whole different wavelength that was not expected at first. You're like, oh, it's a story about a hitman that, wants to reintegrate himself in society. So he's going to go study to become an actor. But then you watch the show and you realize you're watching a protagonist that is just a bad person. And you watch him continue to become worse, not better. And Hader's performance is fantastic. Henry Winkler is great. I think Gene is at the light the whole time. But
oh my God, yeah.
I mean, just where the show takes you through this season heck, I mean, I think we said this at the time, but if the show never came back, it's honestly it was a very fitting ending. But I really thought that journey was quite impressive, and it was really well paced, scripted. There was also great comedy in here too. And a lot of that comedy was quite dark. But overall, I was very impressed and blown away by Barry.
Yeah, I mean, you had told me at the beginning of the year Barry was going to be a show with Bill Hader as the star, and he was probably going to be the least funny part about it. I wouldn't have believed you. But really, Hader gets to play this very dramatic role, which has funny moments for sure. Like I think more about like his physical humor in it more than anything. Like I think about him trying to like match the facial expressions, or like that one for some reason just sticks in my mind. But then I think about like NoHo Hank and like how fucking funny he got to be all season. Henry Winkler got to be so like, I don't know, just magnetic and outgoing and
Right.
really just shine in this role. Yeah, I mean, I think for in terms of a debut season, the only comedy I can think of, there's only two that I can think of, and they're both on this list: Atlanta and The Good Place. I had season ones that really caught me this way for the first season. So I'm really looking forward. Hopefully we get more Barry, but if not, shout out Bill Hader for coming up with this awesome
I
fucking
think we're
show.
getting more Barry. I think that's already confirmed. Something like that.
I'm pretty sure you're right too. I just was thinking about you saying if it doesn't come back, which made me really sad for a second. What was your number 3, Dave?
Yeah, it was renewed, by the way, Barry.
Okay, great.
Yeah, my number 3 was Succession.
Okay. So I'm gonna jump in with my number 4 because I thought we were gonna have them switched. Number 4 for me then was Killing Eve.
Okay, that's my number 2.
We didn't get a chance to talk about, and I actually just finished up recently. This is a show created by Phoebe Waller-Bridges, who made Fleabag, a show I still need to go back and watch.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge, not Phoebe Bridges.
I know. I was like listening to Phoebe Bridgers and then also like writing up my Killing Eve breakdown, and I was like, I'm gonna get this confused tomorrow. Yeah, I thought for sure. Sandra Oh. So I've watched some of Grey's Anatomy. I've dabbled. If an episode's on, I might check it out. And Sandra Oh's not on the show anymore, but maybe she died on the show. I feel like everybody on that show dies at some point. Their character does. Anyways, Sandra Oh, and I was a really big fan of her. I found her like eccentric, just kind of like out there, and she didn't really strike me as an actor I really wanted to follow. And then she becomes Eve, and she was fucking made for that role, dude. Like, what awesome casting. Yeah. Her and Jodie Comer.
Jodie Comer, yeah. Yep.
Fucking the relationship between them, the obvious camaraderie between them was so evident on screen. That and just how well written this show is, and the way it's able to like give snappy dialogue, really tie things in, give little bits of humor here and there. I just thought this show was a revelation, and can't wait for season 2 because I feel like they have so much to dig into and such a relationship between the two main characters to pull apart. What did you think?
Yeah, going in, I had known that Phoebe Waller-Bridge was really well regarded as a writer, and I haven't seen her show Fleabag, which is on Amazon. Only like 6 episodes, but everyone really talked about her as a writer. And then she even kind of got to embody a little bit that when she was the voice of the droid in fucking Solo recently, right?
Yeah.
But then to have her do Killing Eve, which is like such an indulgent like opportunity. I'm so happy she got to do this chance, because from the jump, this show just hooks you in. Like those first 3 episodes maintain tension. No way that was matched for me with anything else this year. I thought those first 3 episodes were effectively flawless. The way they bring Villanelle and Eve together so soon, and like you're like, oh, whoa, it's Killing Eve. She's just going to be evading the assassin the whole time, and it'll be cool to watch. No, that's not what the show is. And like they caught them together so fast, and then once they're actually together and they start having conversations, and you realize like, wait, this show is tackling like themes of like purpose and ambition and stuff, and
Hmm.
it's way more it shows way more ambitious than I thought it was ever going to intend to be. And then it's also Villanelle has great humor. I think a lot of her moments, especially early in the season when she's alone or with Constantine, are standout. I
Hmm.
thought Jodie Comer actually was one of my favorite breakout performances of the year in terms of someone I now I'm quite familiar with and a big fan of.
Hmm.
Uh, and like I said, the writing I think is really really well done, and I think that's part because the casting is very inspired. And
Hmm.
Sandra Owen and Comer really live in these characters, and I thought, even where it went in places I didn't expect, like I didn't think we were going to spend any time in any Russian prisons or anything. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Um, but it always came back around, and like the whole like overarching stuff with Constantine the 12, I think it's a cool framework to keep for the future of this
Hmm.
show. But I am actually quite curious where the show will go for season 2, just because the whole dynamic has changed,
Yeah.
since we started. So, but even if season 2 falls off, I think season 1 was just a masterclass in maintaining tension in terms of storytelling. I loved it.
Even up to the point where they're laying on the fucking bed together, like at the end, like you just could like cut the tension with a pin, with a needle. It was so tense. Yeah, Jodie Comer is like one of the biggest breakouts for me as well. And I was wondering, who do you feel like had a better breakout, Comer or Pugh?
Shit, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I think because Jodie
It's
Comer
tough.
was a little less well known, I'd give it to her.
Yeah.
Just because people were already talking about Florence Pugh last year, and
Yeah.
she's already got some big looks already. But it's a great question. They're both stars.
Yeah, and I feel like Comer. I mean, Villanelle is such a um interesting character, like so sexual and like so deviant and mysterious and weird. I mean, she's got a lot to play with there. So uh, I think that she is going to be a huge star, and we're going to be seeing her for a while. Um, why don't we jump to what was it? Number three for me? No, number. Where did you have Killing Eve on your list, by the
2.
way? Two. Okay, so number three for me was Barry. And then number two for you was Killing Eve. And
Yep.
number three for you was Secession, though. So let's talk about that because that
Correct.
was my number one.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Succession. Uh, Probably the first, perhaps only show of the year to capture any grasp of the zeitgeist. Right. I think
Yeah.
partially because it was released in a relatively quiet summer, as far as
Mhm.
TV goes. That really helped, I think. But the show quickly became just a content factory for the internet, right? Memes and jokes and gags and all that. So that really helped the show catch life and really build an audience, because one of the most common refrains about this show is that first 3 episodes kind of slow. I didn't continue. It didn't hook me. I gave up. But then everyone tells you like, no, fucking keep watching this show. The show exponentially improves throughout the whole season. It's one of the most impressive things I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Where it really
Once you get to that boardroom scene, it just like it's like a fucking rocket, dude.
right, and it just like the show knew where it was going the whole time. But man, does it is it, like each audience member as they're just watching this show and they're realizing, oh wait, that's what this show is. It's not what I thought it was, Because initially, I don't even think you were that interested in it at first, right? Because it
No.
was a show about, you know, analogs of the Murdoch family, which is not the most pleasant thing to watch in the age of Trump, right? I think we've all had enough of that kind of stuff, right? In terms of wealthy families that treat each other badly. I think we're cool on that, right? Then we realize, wait, the show is not only hilarious, but it's super smart and it's
Mhm.
expertly casted. That it's just a joy. And each you think, oh, this is the best episode of the season. Then the next episode happens, it's like, oh my god, it keep getting better and better. So, I mean, I think my favorite episode of the season, which is tough because I think the finale is fantastic, but I think Prague, the uh,
Yeah.
the bachelor party episode, which involves a swallowing of a load. Oh my god, show is so great. Kieran Culkin is fantastic. I believe he just got a Golden Globe nomination actually for
Mhm.
the
Yeah.
show. Uh, Matthew
Nicholas
McFadden is great.
Braun.
Yeah, Nick Braun, another guy who really grows throughout the season and cousin
Greg
Greg
the
went from
Egg.
straight straight comic relief to actually a really important and cool character by the end. And of course, Jeremy Strong is really great as Kendall too. So I think watching the Roy family was perhaps the most enjoyable thing I watched all year.
And that's the reason I put it at number one. When I think about television, when I think about pretty much anything on these top 10 lists, I think about how much did this thing capture me. My top two were Secession and Atlanta, and those were the only two shows that by the end I needed to watch when they came out. Once I caught up to Secession, I was waiting for it for was it 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock on Sunday nights to watch it so that I could follow along on Twitter, so that I could be part of the conversation. I could be reading the recaps. It was the culture for a while, and it was so funny. It had such awesome build up and payoff moments. You hate pretty much all the characters, but you also kind of love all of them in different ways. They're very like almost endearing in a sense, because they're also like fucking broken. But they
and
wear
terrible.
it in such different ways. Yeah, and just awful people. And I think you can think back to almost every episode in a moment sticks out. And I think that if Atlanta has been around, and we talked about it a little bit and we'll talk about it more in a second, how season one was just such a lightning bolt that it was going to be hard for season two to ever really match it completely. And it did a pretty good job still, but Secession like that it was just a fucking lightning bolt this year. And it's going to be probably what I remember most about 2018 is that this is the year Secession came to us. So hats off to that whole cast. Looking forward to season two whenever it comes out. So does that make Atlanta your number one then?
That it does, sir. That it does.
All right. I had it at number two, Donald Glover. Yeah. What do you got to say about Atlanta?
Yeah, I think Atlanta has the best episode of the year, Teddy Perkins.
You like eating ostrich eggs, Dave? Oh, that thing is so gross.
And then that episode gets even a little better once you realize that was Donald Glover the whole time. Now, I think Atlanta, we've talked about Atlanta a lot, especially last year. But this is a show that is a comedy, quote unquote, but it's really more of a drama. And it's really more about subverting expectations and subverting TV conventions more than anything else. And we said this at the time, and most people knew this already, but the star of the show is not Donald Glover. The star of the show is Brian Tyree Henry as Paperboy, as Alfred. And Brian Tyree Henry is even better in season two. He has even more to do. The stuff with the scenes about his mom, which also relate to Henry's mom in real life, I thought was just some of the best stuff I saw. And then, it also has it's a show that is rife with unexpected moments, whether it's the whole episode like Teddy Perkins, or stuff like the beginning with Cat Williams and Alligator Man. Effectively anything that happens with Keith Stanfield.
That shot of the alligator walking out with that hello, like still fucking crazy. You really got an alligator in there? Hey, you friendly with it? No, sorry, I cut you off. Please.
No, I just it's tough to really say. I think it's just a show that like it just transcends all other quote comedies, and I think it's just expertly writing. And Hiro Murai also gives it a great flair. We've talked a lot about several people already that have great cameras, and I think Hiro Murai, his collaborations with Glover in terms of how they want to communicate scenes and shots really stands out. And I'm really glad that he's gotten a lot of love for the show, because he was relatively unknown as the guy who did music videos more than anything else, really. And I think this is the best thing Donald Glover has been a part of pretty easily, which is funny because a lot of the quote Glover stands only listen to his music and don't watch this show, which I find hilarious. But yeah, I thought, man, Robin season, it was awesome. I want more Zazie Beetz. That's probably my only critique, but every time we get her, she's great.
Yeah, her and Lakeith Stanfield could always use more time, and I just don't think they really got the time for it this season, unfortunately. I started laughing when you were talking about Brian Tyree Henry, because I was thinking about the barbershop episode
Um,
where he's just trying to get his haircut the whole time. Fucking Bibby, is that right? Bibby the barber just
something like
driving
that.
him all
Yeah.
around town. Uh,
Relax,
that and
man.
Teddy Perkins. So fucking funny. And then at the end when he goes to the different barber and he's just staring at him and the guy doesn't know how to do his hair, just like so well written. Yeah, I mean the show is just phenomenal. Donald Glover uh, continues to establish himself this year as a culture maker and a visionary in our time. I mean, when we talk about songs next week, I have a feeling we'll at least be mentioning This Is America, if not putting it somewhere on our list. And I think it just speaks to the fact that Don Glover right now is talking about things, presenting certain types of comedy and stories that not many people are really touching on. You know, in the spectrum of things. You know, you got the barbershop episode, but then you have Woods, which you mentioned earlier, which is it was a difficult episode, I think, when people first watched it, but it really grew on people because of the performance and because of the story and the messaging behind it. And this show really, for being hilarious at times, it thrives with the things like Fubu or
Mm.
Woods or Teddy Perkins when it delves into some deeper. I don't know if Teddy Perkins is necessarily deep. I think there's a message there, but just like not what you'd expect. So Atlanta still one of the most fun things to watch. Period. Not even on TV, just period to watch right now. Definitely have to. If you aren't watching Atlanta, don't even listen to this podcast. Like, what's the point?
I don't like that's the thing. Like anyone who's like watching TV criticism or reading about television, it's one of the best shows. It's on everyone. It's in everyone's top five at least, right? Like I don't know how anyone can be sleeping on the show unless they're just willfully not informed. You know?
Yeah, willfully uninformed. So, want to recap? Just read the list real quick. 10 to
Uh,
1.
yeah. So 10, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. 9, My Brilliant Friend. 8, Little Drummer Girl. 7, Homecoming. 6, Bodyguard. 5, Better Call Saul. 4, Barry. 3, Succession. 2, Killing Eve, and 1, Atlanta.
I had 10, The Good Place would have been The Bodyguard. 9, Better Call Saul. 8, Homecoming. 7, The End of the Fucking World. 6, Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. 5, The Little Drummer Girl. 4, Killing Eve. 3, Barry. 2, Atlanta. And Secession at the top of the list. And that's going to do it for us this week. Please tune in next week to hear us talk about our best songs and albums of the year.
You know, I think we actually should shout out a show or two that we missed that we wish we had included for this list. I know I have one in particular. That's The Americans.
Yeah.
That's a show that I really love. I'm just not caught up on. I know a lot of people really love this last season. I heard the finale nails it, so I'm really excited to watch it. But I didn't see it yet, so that's why it wasn't on my list.
Yeah, I'd probably say BoJack for me. I watched BoJack. I've seen a couple episodes of the season, just wasn't able to get all the way through it yet, based on prioritizing different things we want to talk about. So, yeah, you can't get to it all, especially when this is not our full-time job. So, but if you want it to be, go to soundcloud.com/nostalgiapod. Follow the pod on Twitter and anywhere else, YouTube, now Spotify, and give us that rating and review on iTunes and share us with friends. Help us grow so that we can be bringing you all the content that you want.
Gang.
And yeah, hit us up. Tell us what your favorite shows of the year were. We want to hear from you. Maybe we'll post it on the Twitter. See what we think.